For now, I want to talk about the hiring of Lou Anarumo. Defensive coordinator from the Bengals is moving to the Colts after being fired in Cincinnati. Let's talk about overall what's going on here, right? We moved on from Gus Bradley after 3 seasons, interviewed 5 possible options. Dennis Allen goes to Chicago to join Ben Johnson, and as a result, the Colts hire Lou Anarumo. So I think we across the board would believe that Dennis Allen would have been the most desirable option. He ends up going to Chicago. Chicago is going to be dangerous from a coach and coordinator perspective, knowing that they have Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen over there. But the Colts grab Lou Anarumo, former Bengals defensive coordinator. He contributed to the Super Bowl appearing playoff run from a few years ago. Remember, the Bengals, they draft Joe Burrow. He gets injured, but then the next year, his second year, but really first as a full-time starter all season, fully healthy, they go to the Super Bowl. They lose to the Rams, but they got to the Super Bowl. They won the AFC, and they had the number 1 defense in the league when they did that under Lou Anarumo. Now, the defense in Cincinnati has experienced a downfall into this season, and people that just off a glance look at the Bengals and say, oh, well, we're taking a bottom half defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley, and replacing him with another bottom half defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. Yeah, that statistically is true when you look at 2024 in a vacuum, but Lou Anarumo as a whole, I think, is fantastic. I think this is a great hire, and I think that the personnel declines, right? The Bengals having to make decisions about where they're going to keep, which players they're going to keep, right? Which salary cap space are they going to allocate to the offense and the defense? They focused on the offense, let the defense kind of fall by the wayside from a roster perspective because they just didn't have the money to pay everybody. And Lou Anarumo really had to do more with less and didn't for most of the year. But as the Bengals rounded into form at the end of the season and really put together a push for the playoffs, the defense was a major part of that. They allowed 18.8 points per game in their final 5 games of this past season, nearly turning the team around and qualifying them for the playoffs. And maybe they beat the Bills, and maybe Lou Anarumo is not even on the market because he's a head coach somewhere, right? In my opinion, this is a steal that the Colts grabbed with Lou Anarumo. The main things for me that I see from him from a schematic perspective are the fact that he doesn't really have a favorite scheme on defense, particularly in the pass coverage. His philosophy is that you should be adapting your defense and you should be adapting your pass coverage concepts, right, to the quarterback that you're facing. This is a league of quarterbacks, right? In 2025, this is a league of quarterbacks. It has been for a while. Some of these elite, just look at the conference championship games, right? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, all fantastic, young, talented quarterbacks. If you are going to get to the conference championship game, if you're going to get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to circumvent some of these games against quarterbacks that are just more talented than anyone else on the field. These young, talented, athletic, intelligent quarterbacks, that is what you have to beat. That's what you have to take away. That's what you have to counteract if you're a defense. And Anarumo really takes that to heart and says, depending on the skill set and really just the skill set of the quarterback that we're facing, that's going to dictate how we run our defense. And that's the main difference between Anarumo and Bradley. Bradley ran very static defenses. The Colts were known for playing the most country cover 3 in the league, and country cover 3, really just cover 3. Country just kind of is what indicates that it's regular cover 3, but cover 3, right? What you've seen from the Colts, we play what? I don't even know what the number is, but I'm just going to throw out 60% just as a guess. I have no idea if that's true, but I'm sure cover 3 is what the Colts put on the field defensively the vast majority of the time. And it has its strengths, but it's one of the easier defenses to dissect. And that's what you're seeing with guys like Bo Nix and Drew Lock that are able to just annihilate this defense through the air, is because cover 3 has weaknesses, and the weaknesses that every coverage has weaknesses, right? But the weaknesses of cover 3 remain the weaknesses of cover 3 no matter what, right? If you put cover 3 on the field 10 times, eventually any NFL caliber quarterback is going to figure out where the weaknesses are because it's a very straightforward coverage. It works in small doses, but just throwing cover 3 on the field every single play is going to set you up for failure. And I think that really contributed as well to the decline for the Colts later in the season, because when you have even guys like Drew Lock on the Giants or Bo Nix, a rookie quarterback in the Broncos, even those guys that maybe aren't as experienced at reading defenses, they can just watch film from the last 14, 13, 12 weeks, whatever it is, look at all of the cover 3 and just really have an understanding of the tells and the differences. Because again, Gus Bradley, and it wasn't just cover 3. It's not like that's all he played. Certainly, I'm sure it wasn't even more than 50%. I really don't know what I'm talking about. However, Gus Bradley, we know, ran very static defenses, and that's much easier to beat if you're a young quarterback or any quarterback on the other side. Anyone at the NFL level is going to be able to understand how to beat a static defense, and that's exactly what teams started to do and quarterbacks started to do as the season sort of progressed and we got closer and closer to playoff time as the Colts fell further and further off the rails. But Anarumo, on the other hand, is known to be dynamic. He's called the mad scientist by players and plenty of people. He deals with the most effective quarterbacks in the league by adapting his defense, the scheme, the concepts, the coverages. He adapts to cater to their strengths and weaknesses. There's no identical looks week to week. So let's just say if the Colts were in the AFC Championship game right now, if they were playing against the Chiefs on the road, Patrick Mahomes could look at all of the film and sure, he'd understand. He had some understanding of what the basic structure of the Colts defense is, but he still would have to know in the back of his head that Anarumo is going to throw something at him that specifically catered to what Patrick Mahomes struggles to sort of contend with and also maybe could succeed against, and Anarumo maybe would navigate situations like that differently. So he doesn't have a favorite defensive scheme, which is great to see because that's a direct switch up from what Bradley was as a defensive coordinator. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. My one concern is that is a major shift in philosophy. I personally think it's a step in the right direction. However, you're looking at these players, a lot of them are younger, and we're likely going to have to be bringing in guys from the draft or free agency, and you're putting together a secondary, you're putting together a defense that is not at all used to having to adapt this much from week to week. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe there's a slow start for the defense. Maybe it's a full year-long slow start, and Anarumo has to really put in place his philosophy and put in place what he believes is going to work. And then maybe the Colts will be able to acclimate to that and then become one of the better defenses in the league, one of the better pass defenses in the league moving forward in a few years. So we may have to be patient with Anarumo, knowing how he runs defenses and knowing that it may be more of a marathon rather than a sprint to putting this defense in tip-top shape. So we may have to be patient, and that's something that I want to sort of watch and look out for when we get to week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4 next season is maybe the defense is having some weak spots, maybe the defense is having some problems, but it's Anarumo's first year with a very complicated system, really a system that doesn't exist, right? We'll see how long it takes for Anarumo to fully put in place the defense and the quality of defense that he wants to have in place. So moving forward, what do we need to do, right? The Colts absolutely need to bolster the quality of the secondary. We need more pieces back there at the second level. We've got to give Anarumo the tools to harbor success in ways Cincinnati sort of couldn't anymore, right? I have no idea how Anarumo was fired at Cincinnati. I think that was a mistake. That's, again, partially why I think this is a steal for Indianapolis. But Cincinnati had some great roster talent back there when they were going to the Super Bowl, and then they unfortunately had to let some of those guys go, and they parted ways in different ways. But if the Colts can give Anarumo what he needs to succeed, the Colts, I think, absolutely could have success on defense as early as year 1 or year 2. So what does that mean? To me, that means we need another corner and another safety. I want this secondary to be fully taken care of, and I think we can do that very easily by grabbing a high-quality cornerback off of the market in free agency and drafting a safety. So Malachi Starks is sitting right there in the first round from Georgia, right? And I know that the Colts could go some different directions. I know Tyler Warren is available. I haven't fully delved into some mock drafts, but first round, second round, I think the Colts need to grab a safety. And after that happens, or at any point when that happens, I think then a corner getting picked away from another team from free agency, I think is what is going to be necessary for the Colts to feel great about their secondary going into next season. Marshawn Lattimore is a target for me off the Commanders, right? Of course, the Commanders certainly have plenty of players that are coveted at this point as they qualify for the NFC Championship game. But I want Marshawn Lattimore and I want Malachi Starks, or some combination of a corner in free agency, safety in the draft, or maybe the other way around. I don't know. We need a piece at both of those positions, and that would make me feel great about the Colts. And, of course, we can kind of reload with some depth the rest of the position group so that if things don't pan out one way or another, there's certainly a backup option maybe or somewhere else they could go with it. So I want to bolster the quality of the secondary. Again, safety in the draft, corner and free agency. I want to give Anarumo the tools he needs to succeed because it may take him some time to work himself to that point where he is having consistent success. So in summary, right, Lou Anarumo comes from Cincinnati. He's got a high ceiling. He's a mad scientist. His complex systems are going to take some time to acclimate to, most likely. But Cincinnati had the best defense in the NFL on the way to the Super Bowl. And if Anarumo can build this defense to that point where they're one of the best in the league, while we build Anthony Richardson to be one of the better young quarterbacks in the league, and he can do crazy stuff like C.J. Stroud and C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels have been doing recently. Let's lift up Anthony Richardson. Let's lift up the defense. I think the offensive talent is largely okay. And then you have an AFC South champion, and then you have a team that can win playoff games, and then you have a team that can potentially make a playoff run and go far in the postseason. Anarumo is going to need some more pieces to achieve the desirable levels of success, but to me, this is a steal. This is a fantastic hire, and I cannot wait to see where the Colts go from here with Lou Anarumo as their defensive coordinator.